Good morning. We're going to get started with a quick roll call. We're going to go at ease after that to make sure we get proxies in. We have members that serve on this committee that are also over in courts, and so we're going to do a little trade-off for a few minutes. So we're going to open the roll call.
So you're just going to leave the roll call open for a while?
Nope. Go ahead and close.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The committee will stand at ease.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B306. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B306. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B306.
All right, the committee will come to order. First up, Senator Sturtevant, you have a motion on Senate Bill 715.
Yeah, move to strike that bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right. There's a motion and a second to strike Senate Bill 715. Go ahead and open the roll.
Ayes 13, no 0.
All right, that bill is stricken. First up, Senator Salim, you have Senate Bill 304 and 305.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If I could start with 305.
All right, Senate Bill 305.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the committee. 305, I do have a in-committee line amendment so that we are in line with the House version that was passed last week. And that amendment is to, in line 16, introduce after occurred, strike out the remainder of line 16 and through businesses on line 17.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Amendments are before us.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chairman. SB 305 provides that locality may be ordinance prohibit or regulate the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. The bill provides that the ordinances may include provisions of civil penalty and that the funds. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Senator Rowe.
Mr. Chairman, can the patron please restate where the strike of the line amendment begins and what it goes through?
Yes, so on line, Mr. Chairman, on line 16, after the word occurred, we're just striking and through the rest of line 17 all the way to the end of businesses. This is so that we're in line with the House version that was passed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this bill gives localities the freedom to manage the use of gas-powered leaf blowers as citizens of individual local jurisdictions see fit. There's a need for this, and the reason for that is leaf blowers are noises damaging our health, and most of the folks that brought this up to our attention, they don't see the need not only because of environmental issue, but also health issues that we don't know the implications of yet, along with the fact that it emits excessive amount of noise and toxin into the air. And of course, there's a lot of landscaping companies, so we're not targeting those individuals or those companies at all, along with the fact that this would allow localities to determine how they want to proceed with that. And of course, there's an increased demand from local governments and individuals at the local level asking their localities to determine these policies, and they don't have that right at the moment. So we're simply asking that we allow localities to determine what they want to do at individual residents, not corporations or anything else.
Questions for the patron? All right, we have Senator Hackworth.
Yes, a question for the patron, Mr. Chair. So this is just for gas-powered leaf blowers, correct?
That is, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. Senator Hackworth, that is correct.
And follow-up, so
Senator
you've got
Hackworth.
Gas-powered weed eaters, you've got gas-powered lawnmowers, you've got a lot of other gas-powered, in the people have at their homes as they're doing stuff. Is that the next step that they're wanting to do after they outlaw gas-powered leaf blowers?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Hackworth, the current version of this is only focusing on leaf blowers because of the number of companies that have switched over and have introduced alternative battery ones. Just happens to be the leaf blowers are the ones that are available on the market more than the weed whackers and all the other ones. I am not aware that those might be the next step, but this is not banning in any capacity. This is just allowing localities to figure out what they want to do. If they bring it up next year or in a different session that they would like to see additional equipments be moved over to the electric side, then we can definitely look at that in the future.
So, Mr. Chair, if
Follow
I
up.
could just
Senator Ackworth.
follow up, yes. So let me get this straight. If a locality wants to ban my gas-powered leaf blower and they pass that, and then I am using it, then I can get fined, correct?
That is correct. Then that is up to the locale, Mr. Chairman, that is, and Senator Hackworth, that is correct. And again, that is up to the localities to determine how they want to do that. We're essentially enabling those.
All right. Next up, Senator Rome and Senator Salim. You've got a whole queue of names here for questions for you on this one. So, Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would ask the patron in this case whether he considers this to be more of an issue in more densely populated areas as opposed to more rural areas, because kind of the way that if there's going to be a middle ground that I kind of am looking at on this, it might be changing on line 13 any locality to any municipality, because I tend to think that this is going to be more of a noise issue rather than an environmental issue or anything else. It's more of a noise issue in a densely populated area as opposed to someone who's got, 5-acre lot, in a semi-rural residential area, and they don't have, the battery-powered one to, go to the edge of a property line.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Rome, that is correct. It is for a lot of the dense areas like Northern Virginia. And the specific, to your point, it is the noise complaint that brought the spill up, along with the environmental impacts as well. If you're trying to make a friendly amendment to add towns and smaller localities, I would take that as a friendly amendment if that's what you're referring to.
Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I guess, I would ask the patron, did the issue come in your district specifically from Fairfax County, or is this a Fairfax City, Falls Church City issue? Because if we were to change locality to municipalities, and we maybe even restricted that to Planning District 8, perhaps, then it would basically be Manassas Park, Fairfax County, or Fairfax City, Falls Church City, and Alexandria. Would that suffice for kind of a starting point here?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Rome, now that you rephrase that, I do see it. This did come from patrons or constituents in the town of Vienna and constituents from the city of Fairfax.
Okay, so then last question, Mr. Chair.
Senator Rome.
So then in this case, if we were to say municipalities, because that would include towns, that would in fact affect Vienna, so that would be included, as well as Clifton. I'm trying to think if there's other towns in Fairfax County, but in Prince William, we've got 4 towns. Obviously, there's a number of them in Loudoun County. So maybe if we're going to do this, maybe taking a small step as possible to begin with just municipalities in Planning District 8. And so at the proper time, I'll motion for that amendment pending discussion for the rest of the committee.
Senator Williams-Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the patron, and I will preface my comments with, I mean no harm to your bill, but why can't localities do this already through zoning ordinances?
Mr. Chairman, it is my understanding they don't have the authority at the moment, and that's what the intent of this bill is, to give them that authority to do the zoning part.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Sturdivant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question, and this may be for council. If this bill were passed and a locality banned gas-powered leaf blowers in a neighborhood governed by a homeowners association, would they be able to allow gas-powered leaf blowers in that homeowners association, or would they be prohibited as well?
Mr. Chair, while a local ordinance typically does not override a restrictive covenant in a neighborhood, in this situation, I'm not sure you have a restrictive covenant that says homeowners shall be allowed to use gas-powered leaf blowers. I'm just not sure it would be applicable. I think the local ordinance would apply locality-wide.
Thank you.
Senator Durant. And we still need to take comments for and against.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron.
My
Senator
apologies,
Durant.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Go ahead.
have that repeated again.
Mr. Chair, a question for the patron. So the amendment that has been passed, it strikes from 16. So civil penalties assessed may be paid into the treasury of the locality where the violation occurred. And we've struck, and that section after that where the revenue from those penalties collected could be used to assist with the purchase of non-prohibitive leaf blowers by residents and local businesses. So if I understand this correctly, you could have some local businesses where they have that made those purchases, and if I understand that correctly, if you have some of those businesses that are going to have to repurchase everything, is that correct? And there's not going to be that, I guess, opportunity for them to get some assistance to purchase new equipment that would fall into compliance, specifically leaf blowers, not the others, not the weed whackers or anything else that's still gas powered. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Durant, that was originally the intent, was to allow, if there's any violations that took place, the funds that would go in to sort of essentially allow a rebate for some of the residents and local businesses to tap into to do the replacement. However, we felt, at least on the other versions in the groups, felt that that was a little bit too extreme in the sense that we wanted to leave it up to the localities if that's what they wanted to do, rather than just telling them that this is how it should be done.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chair?
Senator Durant.
Thank you. So the amendment they felt was too strong to give them an opportunity to have a resource to repurchase them and let them just get the penalty.
Mr. Chair, no. It just felt that we were essentially allowing localities to decide what they want to do and still tell the localities what they should be doing with those funds. So we're essentially giving the power back to localities to allow them to choose how they want to determine what they should be doing with those funds. And if they choose to allow a rebate to be placed for residents and local businesses, that is up to them.
Senator Shalem, we're going to take this by temporarily. The chair of courts is just blown in here, so he needs to get in and out of here. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll wait.
All right. Senate Bill 329. Senator Servo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you taking me out of order. Senate Bill 329 has to do with composting, and the bill basically does three things. One, it gives localities the authority to require the segregation of organic waste from regular waste. Secondly, it requires every school system to design every new school system to be constructed to allow the segregation of waste in their trash facilities. And the third thing is it allows Department of General Services to do a preference for composting, a small preference for composting material when bidding out contracts for organic matters. The reason I've introduced the bill is that according to the EPA, about 85% of food scraps are burned instead of reused. And one of the ways we can use less fracked methane is to use anaerobic digestion, either with animal waste, food waste, other kinds of organic waste. You throw it in a big tub and you bake it. It generates methane. You can put that in a pipe and burn it in your furnace or your stove instead of using fracked methane. And in order for that type of technology to work, they have to have a consistent feedstock. And the biggest food waste creators in a lot of counties are the school systems. And after that, there's some big food manufacturing facilities like out in the valley where they chop up chickens and turkeys and things like that, or hams in Smithfield, or et cetera. And this just creates the waste stream for that industry to develop in our state. The state of Maryland has already done this kind of legislation, and we're just trying to keep up with them. And that's basically what the bill does. I believe the administration might be here. They have a task force that's working on these issues, and I think these recommendations are mostly consistent with what they've recommended. So Mr. Rollman, I think, is in the room, if I'm not mistaken. There he is. So he might be here to...
Yeah, and if this bill report has been requested by Finance.
Right. So that's basically what the bill does. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I think there might be one person online.
All right, those in support of Senate Bill 329, please come forward.
Anyone
State your name, organization, and support.
wishing to speak in favor, please raise your hand.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Morgan Whalen with Virginia Natural Gas. As the Senator said, renewable natural gas is a key opportunity for us to get to our net zero goals. And we thank the Senator for bringing the bill.
Anyone online in support?
You have
Please turn your camera on, raise your hand, let it be known.
You have one person, Andrew Casterly. You may unmute and give your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman and committee members. For the record, my name is Andrew Castley, testifying on behalf of Bioenergy DevCo. We own and operate food waste recycling facilities in Europe and the United States. As the Senator mentioned, the impetus of this legislation came from recommendations from the Virginia's Waste Diversion and Recycling Task Force, and it essentially accomplishes three main goals. First, the bill allows localities to extend the lifespan of their landfills and meet climate mitigation goals by implementing regulations to divert food waste and organic material from the waste stream. As he said, it's estimated.
Thank you. I know the patron covered those items. And also, please turn on your camera for those who are prepared to testify online. Senator Servo.
I hope it's showing.
Okay, thank you. Others in support of Senate Bill 329? Those in opposition to Senate Bill 329? All right. Questions from the committee. Senator Sturtevant.
Mr. Chairman, I think that this bill would apply to supermarkets per the definition of a generator of large quantities of organic waste. One question is whether or not it would also apply to restaurants, whether they'd be subject to it as well. And the follow-up question is if we have a sense of what the economic impact is going to be on these generators like supermarkets or restaurants if they're covered to be able to comply, and how that might impact what they charge for food in the grocery store or food in the restaurant.
Senator
What I would say is this is local option. It doesn't require anything. It just gives the locality the authority to enact an ordinance if they want, and I would surmise that those issues would be fought out at the local level if a locality were to try to do that. So it could apply to them, but it doesn't have to. It's not a mandate. And I don't know what the cost would be. They've done it in other states. I can say that too, though. I can't tell you which ones, though.
Senator Williams-Graves. All right. If the bill reports, it needs to go to Finance. Senator Rome.
Mr. Chairman, I move to report and re-refer to Finance on behalf of all of those of us who still have bills up in courts.
All right. There's a motion and a second to report and re-refer to Finance. Go ahead and open the roll.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Thanks for taking me out of order.
All right. Thank you, Senator Servel. Senator Salim, back up. The chair is blown out of the room.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
305. We are at a point of questions we've gone through. I'd like to take now those in support of Senate Bill 305, followed by those opposed. Those in support of Senate Bill 305, please come forward.
You have 3 online, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Kristen Kanaski with Fairfax County, and we support this bill for permissive authority, and just note that any change to our zoning amendment would only happen after significant public outreach, including public hearings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Sarah Taylor, City of Alexandria. For the reasons previously stated, we support the bill. Thank you.
All right, those online in support, please turn on your camera, raise your hand.
April Garland, you may speak. Please remember to unmute. She's not talking. Okay. You may begin. James Gillespie.
Morning, Chairman McPike and members of the committee. I'm Jim Gillespie, and I'm a resident of Fairfax City. This morning, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and on behalf of Quiet Clean Virginia and the Virginia chapter of Elder Climate Action in support of Senate Bill 305, which would permit counties and cities to prohibit or regulate gas-powered leaf blowers. Such blowers have two-stroke gasoline engines, an old and inefficient technology that produces a variety of hazardous emissions and are very loud. Two-stroke engines emit 23 times the carbon monoxide and 300 times more hydrocarbons per hour than a Ford F-150. They are up to 10 times as loud as battery-powered leaf blowers. Operators, particularly landscaping workers who must use them several hours a day, are at risk of lung disease, hearing loss, and tinnitus. Their low-frequency sound travels far, easily penetrating walls and disturbing those at home and work, as well as wildlife. Thanks to advancing technology, battery-powered leaf blowers are now effective for commercial and residential use. The initial cost of acquiring battery-powered equipment is soon recouped by their much lower ongoing operating costs. Across the country, states and localities are making the transition to battery-powered leaf blowers. In Virginia, many urban and suburban localities are ready to make the transition and are already doing so with their municipal equipment. SB 305 provides localities a tool to help move their communities from the use of obsolete, polluting two-stroke engine technology to clean electric technology.
Thank you, sir. What locality are you from?
City of Fairfax.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have just about a minute left for other speakers, so if you have something new to add to the support, please do so. And brevity is appreciated. We have a long docket today. Well, it's becoming longer. It's a short docket, but a long docket. Thank you.
Susan Davis, you may start.
Thank you. I'm from Alexandria, and I'm speaking because we need to be able to defend ourselves in some way. And as was stated earlier, we do not have any, we cannot use the noise ordinance against leaf blower sounds, even though their decibels are way over 65, which is the maximum decibels. And it's been, very frustrating. So we're going to need this change in the law to allow our city to go ahead and decide what kind of rulings we want to make to keep our city quieter and safer so we can go outside and enjoy things. We can work in our offices without being disturbed all of the time. SB 305.
Thank you. We have 30 seconds left, and we have some other speakers. So I appreciate your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you.
Averill Garland. Unmute, please.
Hi. Oh.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Archival Garland. I live in Fairfax County in this town of Vienna. I just like to add that these noisy polluting machines is making our family life very difficult. We can't have children's parties.
Thank you.
I'll just say that I was just saying that there are other options, such as we have one very, very well-known gardener who doesn't use leaf blowers at all. He mulches his leaves with a mower. This is a very good solution. He doesn't use any leaf blowers. With a mulching mower, he mulches his leaves into tiny pieces and he leaves them there and they nourish the lawn. There is no need to go to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Those in opposition to Senate Bill 305, please come forward. State your name, and we're going to set a timer.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. Rob Bohannon, representing the Virginia Golf Course Superintendents Association. These are individuals that maintain golf courses across the Commonwealth. Average golf course is about 150 acres. You can imagine leaf blowers are common use technology to clear the course. I've heard people say, well, you should use the battery powered ones. You can imagine when you're maintaining 150 acres, batteries don't last that long. That's a really inefficient way to do this. And golf courses, a lot of them back up the neighborhoods too, want to be good neighbors, work with the communities that we're in. We think local noise ordinances are a way you can enforce this if there's really a problem, but we'd be opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any online in opposition? Any others in the room in opposition?
Mr. Chairman.
The bill's before the committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rome.
Mr. Chairman, I offer an amendment here, which would be on line 13 to strike locality and insert municipality in Planning District 8. And then in line 16 and 17, I'd like to unstrike, so basically get rid of the introduced amendment so that localities may, or the municipalities may still basically assist with the purchase of non-prohibitive leaf blowers by residents, local businesses. Also, line 16 to change by the municipality in Planning District 8. And perhaps if council can help me figure out the best way to do this, but also making sure that this could only be done after a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Rome, thank you for that friendly amendment. I with all due respect, I would reject that, changing localities. And the reason for that is this is not telling localities specifically what to do and what not to do. This is allowing them the ability to choose. And I think even with the friendly amendment, and again, with all due respect, it would significantly restrict what this applies to. And we're not asking them to adopt it. We're just giving them the ability to do it.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rome.
Mr. Chairman, I would tell the patron in this case that basically math is not on your side right now. Take the W.
Senator Suderline.
Mr. Chairman, the patron spoke several times about what had happened in the House, which one is irrelevant. And only if we're considering a conference report does that matter. Secondly, I think what happened in that other chamber was that they sent the bill back to committee.
Senator Suderline, I believe that's irrelevant.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Rome.
Mr. Chairman, I restate my motion. And if someone is willing to second that, that would be delightful.
All right, there's
It's on the amendments.
a motion and a second to the amendments. Speaking to the amendments, Senator Sturtevant.
With due respect to my friend from Prince William, I would say that a lot of statewide policies start out down here as restricted just to Planning District 8. And so for that reason, I would have to oppose the amendment.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rome.
I have, Mr. Chairman, I would tell the senator from Colonial Heights that given the word choice that some other members have used about Northern Virginia, Plain District 8 over the years, I'm really not sympathetic to that argument.
All right, this motion is second to the amendments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Count your votes. This is for adopting the amendment.
Ayes 7, noes 8.
All right, that amendment fails. The bill is now before the committee.
Move to continue to 2025.
There's a motion and a second to continue to 2025. Open the roll.
We can do that. I would probably do no.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
That
Chairman.
bill is carried over. You have one more as well, but before I do that, I forgot, I blew right past the pages. Please introduce yourself, where you're from real quick. My apologies. Thank you for joining us today. Yep.
Henry Holtzman from Shenandoah County.
All right. Thank you for joining us this morning. Senator Salim, Senate Bill 304.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 304, so there was a substitute that was sent out to the committee, and I asked that we move forward with that substitute.
Is there a motion on the substitute? All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Substitute is properly before the committee. Senator Salim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. SB 304 requires a locality to include in its zoning ordinance for residential zoning district accessory dwelling units or ADUs as defined in this bill as permitted accessory use. The bill requires a person to seek a permit for an ADU from the locality, requires that locality to issue such permit if person meets certain requirement enumerated in this bill, and restricts the fees for such permit to $250 or less. The bill prohibits the localities from requiring lot size or setbacks for the ADU greater than that of the primary dwelling. The bill has a delay effect date of July 1st, 2025, defines what an ADU is and requires homeowners to obtain permits, but not a special use permit, allows localities to restrict ADUs, one per lot, no short-term rental, parking in compliance with impervious surface limits, building codes, water, historical, architectural requirements, exempts private communities, HOAs, and condo associations, allows delay to start so that localities can put procedures in place. Is this bill essentially necessary? Yes, that's why I'm here. ADUs can provide older adults a way to downsize on their property while a tenant or family member resides in the larger house, provides affordable housing option for older adults, caregivers, or extended families. ADUs help to improve housing affordability and diversify a community's housing stock without changing the physical characteristic of a neighborhood, helps combat the housing affordability crisis. Local governments have not been acting fast enough to ensure the housing enough on the housing shortage. This bill encourages localities to act on a small piece of affordable housing puzzle and say that Richmond will get involved if they don't act. Again, this is to with this specific bill. I'm sure you're aware that we continue to work on it, worked on with a lot of the members here, along with localities, to ensure that we make the substantial improvements, and which resulted in the substitute, which we felt were reasonable when we spoke to localities and other folks, and we do have some folks who are here to testify today.
Thank you, Senator Salim. The longer you've been talking, the more names have been popping up in my queue. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Senator Salim, can you just give me the top line differences between the original bill and the substitute? You might have said it, but just as I'm looking through it.
Mr. Chair and Senator, the original bill had a lot of things, including parking, that was specifically required, and this one changes to may require, and the fee was set to $100 for the permit. It has been up to $150, along with additional, I actually have it right here. We changed the ADU to not exceed 1,500 square feet or 50% of the primary dwelling square footage, which originally was 75%. We also updated the owner occupancy, where the owner does have to reside either in the primary dwelling or the ADU. And then, of course, the ADU shall not be no more than 50 feet from the primary dwelling, so that you're not having to have a tiny little home on the corner of your lot. And of course, we added the provision to include a delay start so that localities have enough time if they would like to change their ADU policies, so that they're not going to be, they won't be impacted by the specific bill that we're presenting.
Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got some questions for the patron. Mr. Chairman, the fee on line 18, is that a one-time fee or annually?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Cedarline, that is, we have not specified that, but the intent was a one-time fee, and I can actually have.
I do think that we should clarify that, whatever policy we have.
Senator Cedarline, maybe council can assist with this question.
Mr. Chair, I believe that is a one-time application fee, similar to a special use permit, for example.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Durant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron? Couple of questions, actually. Just going over some of the changes that from the original bill, if I understand this correctly, is a locality, if they've made a decision that they don't want to have an ADU, is this remove that, their ability to do so, to make that determination? If I think we have on here line, so line 15, no locality shall require a special use permit except for in this section. So if I understand correctly, might be a question for council is, are they still required to allow applications for ADUs? Or is a locality able to make that determination that they don't want them?
Mr. Chair, I wanted to refer that to council, but we did put in line 45, line 43, which kind of helps a lot of localities if they have existing permits for ADUs approved prior to January 1st of 2025, but wanted to refer that to the council for clarification.
But the question is, if they have passed, if they've made a determination they don't want to have ADU.
Senator Salim, you got a friend. This is phone a friend moment.
Mr. Chairman, according to my phone a friend, yes, they will have to make those changes.
Mr. Chair, speaking to the bill.
Any questions at this point? We're going to take some testimony first, as well as those in support and opposition, and you're willing to speak to the bill before motions.
Thank you.
Senator Sturtevant, you have questions for the patron? All right. Senator Sturtevant, you have a question for the patron?
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the substitute, there is a limitation that the ADU can be built 4 feet from the setback, I think. I'm trying to find it now. And so, again, this question may be for council. Does that mean that it has to be built 4 feet from, or it can be built within 4 feet of a property line, or is that from the street?
So you're referring to line 33, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, as I read the bill, this would allow or require a locality to allow a setback of 4 feet from the property line.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Those in support of Senate Bill 304, please come up, state your name if you represent an organization, and appreciate your testimony. We're going to do 2.5 minutes, so please be brief.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Jared Kalf with AARP Virginia. We strongly support the bill. Older Virginians are facing a housing affordability crisis like many others around the Commonwealth, and ADUs present a great option for people that want to live on the same property as a family member or a family caregiver. And what this legislation does is put some reasonable guidelines in place to make that a possibility for folks living all across Virginia. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Alexander McCauley for VA Our Way. We think the bill is necessary because too many localities require a special use permit for a homeowner to build an accessory dwelling unit. For example, one of the largest localities in the state has an ADU ordinance, but it treats all detached ADUs as a special use, and we think that's wrong. This bill gives localities the ability to regulate many aspects of ADUs. We think it strikes a reasonable balance. And for example, many of y'all mentioned the parking, and Senator Salim has amended his bill so that the locality can restrict parking for ADUs.
Thank you. Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barrett Hardman with the Commonwealth Housing Coalition. Three things. In almost every jurisdiction in Virginia, you can build a garage by right on your single-family property. In almost every jurisdiction, you can build a giant, elaborate outdoor kitchen without having the local government get involved other than a building permit. And in no jurisdiction would you be denied allowing your in-laws to move into your house. But when you put all those three things together, if you want to build a small house for your in-laws with a kitchen in it, then you have to get the Board of Supervisors involved. We support the bill, and we hope you'll pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. We got about 5 speakers left in 45 seconds. Can you hold your question?
Christian Martinez, Research and Policy Analyst at CASA, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Isabel McLean with the Virginia Housing Alliance, and we support the bill.
Sam Toby with Americans for Prosperity, we support the bill. Thank you.
Erin Corman with the Realtors, we support the bill.
Kashish with New Virginia Majority, and we support the bill.
And Andrew Clark with the Home Builders, and we support the bill. Thank you. Oh, sorry, man.
Mr. Chair, Randy Grumby, representing the Virginia Manufactured Modular Housing Association. We're neutral on the bill, so I try to position myself between favored and opposed. So we see the role that ADUs can play in solving the housing crisis, but we also recognize that local government should have a say in the complexity of these units, and so therefore we'll remain neutral. Thank you.
Mr. Gumbine, could some of these ADUs not be pre-manufactured?
Exactly, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Those in opposition to Senate Bill 304, come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Joe Lurch with Virginia Association of Counties. I just want to point out a couple of things. I think based on your questions here, you're trying to write a statewide ordinance that would apply to all localities. Many of our members already incorporate ADUs within their ordinances, and many more are doing that. I think the issue here is making sure that it fits in with the locality in conversation with their community, and they can update their ordinances throughout the year. You set this in stone, and then we got to wait a whole nother year and then wait until July to then enact changes. So we just think it needs to be at the local level. An issue has been raised about promoting affordability. One of the issues of a work group that was commissioned by the General Assembly that reported back in 2022 by DHCD, they said, look, the majority of them said we should avoid specific mandates to support creation of ADUs, but they did say there was significant interest in exploring grant opportunities to construct or maintain ADUs. And the reason I bring that up is you can permit an ADU by right or special use permit, but it's a very costly thing to do. And so if you're looking at affordable housing, there are some examples in other states that have done that, and that's something that VACO would be very supportive of. I'll also point out that recently the code was updated, the Virginia Building Code, to actually help facilitate these, but not requiring separate HVAC systems, without requiring full fire separation. We think these are the ways to help incentivize this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kristen Kanaski with Fairfax County, and we oppose this bill primarily for the elimination of all the public input that we had sought in 2021 when we amended the zoning ordinance. When Fairfax County amended in 2021, it streamlined its process for ADUs. So there's an attached ADU process where it's just an administrative permit and a special exception required for any detached new construction that you're building on the property. And this is not a bar to ADUs at all. In fact, 15 of the 16 applicants who had applied for detached ADUs were approved. And so what this special exception does is it protects the rest of the community so that this increased density will not affect their utilities, their water, their sewage, schools, et cetera. Thank you.
All right. Next up. State your name, time has expired. Fairfax has consumed all of it. Keep on going.
Thank you. Andrew Cohen of Virginia Beach, member of the board of the North Virginia Beach Civic League and co-chair of our Legislative Affairs Committee. We support ADUs, but not this bill because it preempts local authority to determine where ADUs are compatible use and what ordinances or other requirements should apply, including lot size, setback, and water and sewer capacity. Like other localities, Virginia Beach is actively working to define appropriate ordinances and requirements for ADUs, and we support that process. There's no compelling need for the General Assembly to preempt localities on this. Please do not advance this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Michelle Gowdy, Virginia Municipal League. We oppose the bill.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. Alana Crennan with Arlington County. We oppose the bill. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Ed Reed, Two Capitals Consulting, on behalf of the city of Hampton, and we also oppose the bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, there's a couple of speakers online I neglected to call upon, and so if you have, please make sure to raise your hand, turn on your camera, and state your name, your support or opposition. And if there's anything different than prior speakers, please do so. Otherwise, state your support or opposition.
Mayor Kelly Burke, you may begin. Mayor Kelly Burke.
Hello, Chair McPike and committee members. I'm Kelly Burke. I'm the mayor of the town of Leesburg. I appreciate all the work that's been done on this bill. However, we remain concerned that this sets precedents of Richmond telling local governments how to control their zoning. We ask that you take action on this bill so more work can be done to avoid unintended consequences. Please table this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Next speaker.
Gabriel Kravitz, you may begin.
McPike, members of the committee, my name is Gabe Kravitz from the Pew Charitable Trusts. Pew studies the nation's housing shortage, and to address this shortage, 8 states have passed similar legislation to allow ADUs by right on all or nearly all single-family lots. They slowly add to affordability incrementally, and Pew conducted a survey and found that 72% of Americans favor allowing ADUs by single-family.
So, sir, you support the bill?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next speaker.
Ryan O'Connell.
Ryan O'Connell, on behalf of 55,000 homeowners, members of How To ADU, in strong support of the bill.
Great, thank you. All right, we have in the queues of our own committee speakers. I'm sorry, one more? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Adam Charney, you may go.
Adam Charney, Mayor of Cape Charles. We oppose the bill.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate you joining us today. First up in the queue, Senator Hackworth.
Yes, thank
followed
you.
by Van Valkenburg, followed by Williams-Graves.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Speak to the bill. I appreciate the patron for his work on trying to have affordable housing and work on the housing needs that we have in the Commonwealth. And there's nobody a greater friend of housing than I am, I think. But I do have a problem with this bill. I think that on lines 33 and 34, that would allow setbacks that is up to 4 feet, which could be virtually on the property line. I think that could be a big problem for localities. And greater than my need for wanting housing, I think that localities need to decide this, and I think we take this away from our localities. We open up Pandora's box. So for that reason, I could not support the bill, but I do thank you for bringing it.
Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking to the bill. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, there's a certain irony in the fact that almost every local government that came up here to critique this bill came from Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads on the day that the Richmond Times-Dispatch wrote an article about people are fleeing Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads to come to my localities, my area, because of housing affordability. And so I'd like to point that irony out, that Richmond area gained 25,000 residents, or 35,000 residents, while Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia lost net 25,000. And a lot of that's tied to housing. And I'll just kind of end by talking about what 2 people brought up. One person brought up the AARP and the kind of elderly here. And we know that one part of the housing crisis is that we have a lot of folks whose kids have gone to college and become adults, and they are trapped in 3,000 square foot homes out in the outer suburbs because if they sell it, there's nowhere to go. And then secondly, you can have your in-laws live in your home. You can build a fancy outdoor kitchen behind your home. You can do all these things. We already let them do it, but we don't let them tie it together with a bow. And finally, the last thing I'll say is it is not as if we legalize this, we would have a flood of people living in ADUs. That's just not the reality. This is a small piece of the puzzle, and so that's why I'll be supporting the bill.
Was that a motion?
Move to report.
There's a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 304. Those speaking to the motion, Senator Williams Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I have two things. I would like to offer a friendly amendment to the patron to remove the $250 fee. I think that's somewhat arbitrary, and I think that we are, again, circumventing the needs of the locality to process. So I don't feel like the fee should be in code if that is something that the patron would be accepting to.
Mr. Chairman, having my prior bill with the numbers, I would accept that friendly amendment.
Senator Salim, you said you view that as a friendly amendment or not? I did not hear you. Senator Williams Graves.
I just don't feel like we should be telling localities how much they can and cannot charge for permits in the code.
All right, next up, Senator Pekarsky.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to speak to the motion, just ask a question. Is that okay with you? Okay. What?
Mr.
Where are we with yours?
Senator Pekarsky, you speaking to the bill?
Yes. Do you want me to wait?
Proceed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I want to thank the patron. I think this bill has come a long way from where it first started, so I appreciate your work on that. And I'm very supportive of ADUs in general, and I think they do have a place. They will not fix the housing crisis in Northern Virginia or anywhere else, but they do have a place, especially right now when we're seeing the elderly parents who need a place to stay, want to be close to their kids, when we're seeing college graduates who are having a hard time finding housing. However, my question is, after hearing, and coming from local government and hearing some of the comments from the local folks, Fairfax said they approved 15 out of 16, and one speaker said, what's a compelling need right now for us to get involved? So I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of answer that part. What is the compelling need right now? What problem will we fix immediately by passing this at this point?
That is not speaking to questions. Speaking to the motion is not a question.
Then I will
here.
put
We've
that
closed
in the
that part out.
form.
Senator Drunk, and then Williams Graves again.
Mr. Chair, speak to the bill?
Speaking to the motion.
Motion.
To report, Senator Durant.
Is that with the amendment, Mr. Chair? Or? There's no amendment. Okay, speaking to the motion, is it, there's a substitute. There's a substitute? No, but there's no other amendment. Okay, there's a motion. All right.
Speaking to the motion to report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I just really wanted just to point out, it would be remiss not to point out that this very issue just came through in the city of Fredericksburg. They had quite a rigorous discussion about this one. There was quite a strong opposition to it. And so, from that standpoint, removing localities from being able to make that local decision, that's why I'm going to have to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Senator Williams Graves.
Speaking to the bill, motion, wherever we are, I just simply have concerns about parking and code enforcement. I know that in Norfolk, our codes and zoning departments are already short-staffed. I also have concerns about areas that are already dense and what this will do to those neighborhoods. And lastly, I have concerns about how ADUs may change the character of single-family neighborhoods. I agree that we need a multi-pronged approach and to add additional housing to our current supply, but cities like mine that are 95 to 97% already built out need options. This is not to say that I'm totally against the bill, because I do like the idea. I just want to make sure that we're looking at the issue that it solves as well as the problems that it may create. The last thing that I want is for folks 10 or 15 or 20 years from now looking at us going, what the heck were we doing? I also want to make sure that we're not stripping localities, municipalities, cities, counties, and towns of the ability to do what is needed for their respective communities. The last thing I'll say is that conditional use permits require a notification process when you are changing the use of a something that is already permitted, and with a simple permitting process and adding density, there is no input requirement for neighbors if there's simply a permit that's being added. But I thank the patron for bringing the bill and working to try to solve a problem.
All right. There's a motion and a second to report the substitute before us. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 8, noes 6, 1 abstention.
All right, that bill reports Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We got all your bills, right, Senator Salim? All right, just making sure. 5 hours later. All right, Senator Perry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is Senate Bill 549. I believe there are a couple of line amendments.
All right. You want to run us through the line amendments? I believe they're pretty straightforward.
Again, line 14, strike the remainder of line 14 and through locality on line 15. So this bill only applies to elected officials. It doesn't apply to other members of the local government. And then the second amendment is beginning at line 22, raising the $2,500 to $5,000.
Is there a motion on the amendments? All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the amendments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The amendments are before us. Senator Perry.
So this bill is a transparency bill. It's geared towards transparency of local government. You all probably know better than most people that every local government has their own travel policies that they put into place, and how and when people within the local government can travel. This bill attempts to provide transparency to local government officials, only elected government officials, when they are using taxpayer dollars, specifically taxpayer dollars. So it doesn't include, groups and events that would pay for you to travel. It doesn't include any of that. But whenever you're using specifically money from members of the public, it's my belief that you have a very specific responsibility whenever you're going to take taxpayer dollars and use them to travel. And this bill doesn't limit whether or not you can do that. All this bill does is say that you have to let members of the public know in a public vote whenever you're going to spend more than $5,000. You can vote it up, you can vote it down, but at least people know. We are in a time whenever we are seeing a decline in members from the press being able to investigate and being able to report. And this helps make sure that if constituents are interested, that they have the ability to know in an easy and accessible way. I understand that VACO is opposing this bill this morning, despite it being a transparency bill. One of the things that they have indicated is that maybe a local locality might have to consult with an attorney about this. I am an attorney, and I don't think it's that difficult. You can just vote on it in your meeting. If you have questions, I would encourage you to vote on it publicly. The bill also lays out, hey, if you think that it's going to be a specific amount and you go on your trip and it turns out it's a different amount, that's okay. You can come back and you can just let the members of the public know. This is something that I heard a lot about whenever I was campaigning for office from folks on both sides of the aisle. A lot of concern, as we have a lot of questions these days about our government, and this helps provide people that additional level of assurance that we are being responsible stewards with their money. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. We have 3 in the queue so far. Senator Rome, followed by Bagby, followed by Suterline. Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, would the patron just be able to explain a few things? The first is basically whether there's any other forms of like discretionary spending, say for local supervisors, that need to be disclosed right now. So basically, is this kind of putting things in a separate category? And then the other issue at this is, I think it's like what you can already have these included, or basically these sort of expenditures included in various other motions that you can make, or just that come in front of a board. And so, is there anything that's particularly that we particularly need to do in regards to travel expenses as opposed to other types of expenses, just to highlight the issue?
So as I take the question, I think the question is like, hey, are there other expenditures that we should be considering where folks should probably have a say? Look, I think that's possible. This is, quite frankly, relatively narrowly crafted. I didn't put on local government sort of the strenuous reportings that we have. They don't have statement of economic interest that they have to file. I didn't attempt to do any of that. Maybe it's something that the body would be interested in. Maybe there's additional transparency that could be or should be required. I'll leave that up to members of the committee to decide. This was just directed at, a specific concern, again, that I heard from a variety of people, and that continues to be an ongoing concern.
Senator Bagby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, why is the appointed individuals or other individuals that are working for the locality not included? Why would we just pull out of the elected officials? And would the patron be, would the patron accept a friendly amendment to include those?
So, Mr. Chairman, Senator Bagby, the reason is I think I had originally drafted it that way to be more expansive, and I got some feedback that folks were concerned about. Again, just trying to provide as much accountability as possible, and I think that's the nature of your amendment. But I got some feedback. Does that include these other people who are not elected officials, right? The economic advisor and people like that. And so, again, just trying to draw it down to those folks who are elected. I guess the idea is that people who are employees of the local government usually have other caps and considerations. But to answer your question most specifically, if that's the will of the body, if that would make people feel like, hey, this is a better bill, then I would be willing to accept your friendly amendment.
Yeah,
it's not an unfriendly amendment.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Senator Bagby.
I think oftentimes folks play the games with the travel where it's 10 people going on a trip. One of them is the elected official. And the only thing that's reported is the travel of the elected official when all the other individuals have went on that trip and more. And so that's the game that folks play. And it's usually used to put the elected official in a bad light when they have made someone in the administration upset. I made the motion.
Second. There's a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, speaking to a question to the patron about the motion. So, Mr. Chair, would the patron say that the amendment was basically a compromise that had been struck?
It was just a suggestion of something, and again, in an effort to try to limit the bill, and especially with the Virginia Association of Counties and things like that.
Senator Suterline.
That's fine. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Senator Suterline.
On the motion, on the amendment?
Yeah, just speaking to the amendment, I also think that the bill was better. The bill was best when submitted before we amended. I don't understand why we're taking it down to 2,500 or go from 2,500 up to 5,000. So after we deal with this amendment, we should deal with that one too.
Senator Aird on the amendment. Okay. There's a motion and a second to undo the amendment we adopted earlier, striking lines 14 through 15 after body to a locality. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. All right. Open roll on supporting the amendment.
Ayes 7, noes 8.
All right. That amendment fails. Senator Aird.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Perry, it's my understanding that the impetus of this bill is based on an issue that occurred locally in your district. And I would say that as someone who believes in local governments being given the chance to do, what's right when something does go wrong, do you know whether or not the community in which this issue occurred and has done anything to change their policies since this concern was originally raised?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Aird, a couple of things about that. This has been an ongoing issue in my locality under Republican and Democratic administrations. It's been going on for a very long time. There were a number of conversations, specifically at the Board of Supervisors level, to try to address this issue. I don't know if you've seen the amendments or not, but they specifically exclude the chair from having to comply with any of the recommendations. And it's my position that all members of elected officials should be under this requirement, and perhaps other people as well. But I don't think certain people should be exempt from, having the transparency and accountability. Again, it doesn't say how people can or can't travel. It doesn't say where they can and can't go. It doesn't say how much they can and can't spend. But whenever they're spending taxpayer dollars and they're spending over a certain amount, I think the public deserves to know that. And they can use it. They can vote at the ballot box. They can let people know, but they deserve to know. And that's all this bill does.
Senator Aird.
So to further clarify, would you say that your legislation is about addressing the exception of the chair not being addressed in the policy that has been adopted since this issue?
Mr. Chair, Senator Aird, my bill is about transparency. And again, I think my bill changes some from what that specific Board of Supervisors did, but it applies universally across the board to the state. It applies to not just boards of supervisors, it applies to locally elected officials. And the point is that if it's a problem that's going on in my jurisdiction, it's probably a problem that's going on maybe in other places, and we may not know about it. But I do think people deserve to know how their tax dollars are being spent. And so this bill is meant to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, for those, we're going to set 2 minutes. We have multiple other bills to get through, so we do want to take some testimony. For those in support for Senate Bill 549, please come forward, state your name, organization of support. Any online? Okay. Those in opposition to Senate Bill 549, please come up, state your name and opposition. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Dean Lynch, Executive Director of the Virginia Association of Counties. We do oppose this bill. This is a mandate that'll be coming down to all localities. I represent 95 counties in Virginia, and while all 95 counties have personnel policies that deal with reimbursement to local officials, we're going to have to review all those, and it's going to take a legal review by every county in Virginia. I appreciate the senator trying to get at transparency, but I believe that we have transparency now. The issue that was mentioned, I think, in her locality, has been remedied. And I just think that this goes way too far and gives the localities currently do this in their own personnel policies. So we would oppose the bill.
Thank you. Any others in opposition to Senate Bill 549? Senator Suderline.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion. I move to report the bill. And speaking briefly to that motion.
Second. All right, this is a motion, a second to report Senate Bill 549 as amended. Senator Suderline.
I don't know which counties don't have a county attorney, and I find it shameful that we just heard that they would have to review something about them having to spend money taxpayer money so they can go on these trips. This is a great bill, and it's something that we should report. And I think that the original bill was even better than where it's been watered down to. So I thank the patron for bringing it.
Can I say something?
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, just speaking briefly to the bill, when I read this bill, it seems like a pretty common sense, obvious solution. And it's a little concerning that we're hearing the pushback we are about public officials being able to spend $5,000 without a public vote on it simply for travel, which makes me wonder how much of this expensive travel is going on across the Commonwealth. And so I hope we'll report the bill.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 549. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 10, noes 3, 2 abstentions.
All right, that bill reports. Senator Boysko is up next. I'm going to have to make sure to pause real quick. Senator Aird, you have a bill that needs to go to Finance, and I need to make sure that gets out today. Senator Aird, so my apologies, Senator Boysko. Timing-wise, we're going to try to take it, but I might need to make sure this bill gets a hearing. If it's to report, it will go to Finance.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Before you and members of the committee is Senate Bill 645. We did first initially discuss this bill during our last meeting, and I wanted to give the committee at least a week to have proper review because it is a substantive change. Also before you is a substitute, Mr. Chair, having heard additional feedback since a week ago when we did initially take this bill up. And so to ensure that members are clear, the substitute just ultimately also gives authorities only in the section regarding the emergency fiscal distress manager, which you'll find at the very end of the bill, Mr. Chair, to allow them to make recommendations to the local governing body around any personnel changes. In addition to that, we also added that the emergency fiscal manager be able to take a look at any of the duties that may traditionally fall under any of the constitutional officers and move those duties temporarily to rectify, again, the issue of the emergency distress. And so, Mr. Chairman, nothing else has changed since I presented this a week ago. And I will just remind the members that the legislation before you is ultimately bigger than any one locality. If you could take a look at all of the localities that are listed in fiscal distress currently here in the Commonwealth, the list is very long. In no way, shape, or form does this legislation now all of a sudden say all of those localities that are in fiscal distress will somehow now be subject to having an emergency fiscal distress manager. This legislation is about helping localities as a Commonwealth when they are in their absolute worst state. And to get to that absolute worst state, you must be a locality that has not developed a plan on your own, has been unresponsive to the Commonwealth, and have shown no effort or attempt to rectify your state of local fiscal distress. And so let me remind you that this is not the bill as it was introduced where there were concerns about the governor coming in and taking over localities. This is not that. This is really about helping localities that are in an emergency state. And as a Commonwealth, we have a responsibility to have a structure in place to allow ourselves to do that. And having lived through this in my own community once and now twice, I hope that we can move this legislation forward.
Great. Thank you, Senator. And so the substitute as previously adopted at the last meeting is still in existence without amendment, correct?
No, this new one needs to be adopted.
That's what I'm.
Yes.
So there's a new substitute before the committee. Is there a motion on the substitute?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is it motion is second to adopt the substitute? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, the substitute is now properly before the committee. Those in opposition to Senate Bill 645, please come up, state your name and your opposition.
Mr. Chairman and members, Joe Flores with the Virginia Municipal League. We actually rise not to oppose the bill, but to raise some concerns. Appreciate what Senator Aird has brought forward. We do appreciate the changes that she's agreed to make. I would remind the committee that there is a process in place currently in the Appropriations Act since 2017 that would identify localities in fiscal distress. Has the auditor make that determination and provide assistance if necessary. This bill goes further than that and ultimately would allow the appointment of an emergency fiscal manager to assume the day-to-day operations of a locality that's deemed to be in distress, hopefully in a rare instance. That is our major concern, members and Mr. Chairman, and that's why we cannot support the bill at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, sir. State your name in opposition. Thank you.
Speaking in opposition, Alan Albert, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, on behalf of the Treasurers Association, and today for one day only, I'm also speaking on behalf of John Jones for the Sheriff's Association. I don't have the substitute that was distributed, but my understanding is that it is essentially identical to the one that was discussed in the other body. And I believe that it lines 143 through 147 in that substitute specific language that would allow the emergency fiscal manager to displace any of the 5 constitutional officers has been added. And we really, unfortunately, are in a position, as much as we appreciate what Senator Aird is doing, as much as we've enjoyed working with Senator Aird with respect to Petersburg, over prior years, we, the Treasurers Association and the Sheriff's Association, just can't live with that language. So I'd be glad to answer any questions, but just to be very clear, what it says is that the appointee of the 4 gubernatorial appointees can push the constitutional officer out of office. That's an extraordinary measure. It's unnecessary if you have problems about a treasurer anyhow, because 58.1-3164 allows the governor directly to initiate a proceeding to remove the treasurer.
Yep, sir, I do have a question for you. You've been following the local fiscal distress reports for many years, as I have,
Yes.
as a member of the Joint Legislative Audit Review Commission. Would you agree that non-report for 4 to 5 years is probably a sign that is not healthy for a locality nor its residents? Would you agree that that is an issue?
Absolutely,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, absolutely. Typically, the treasurer and the constitutional officers are not the ones who ultimately prepare those reports, but it is true, anticipating the chair's next question, it is true that the treasurer could be a problem in that situation, but the current law.
I wasn't going to ask that, but I appreciate that offer.
Well,
Thank you.
sometimes.
Thank you. Others in opposition, I appreciate your testimony today.
Thank
Others
you,
in
Mr.
opposition to Senate Bill 645, please come up, state your name and who you're with.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Kelly Harris, and members of the committee. I'm Kelly Harris Braxton. We are in the same position or similar position as Virginia Municipal League. We have worked with Senator Aird, and she's done a great job to make the bill better. We are still concerned about, again, the overreach of the bill. We also believe that the language is already in the budget that could be used to deal with this issue. It's been there for several years, and we think that that is probably the best way to go about it. We just think there is overreach in this bill. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Others in opposition?
Chairman McPike, members of the committee. My name is Herbert Bragg, legislative consultant for the City of Hopewell. It was requested by the majority of Hopewell City Council members that I make the following opposition statement on their behalf. The City of Hopewell, majority of City Council members oppose SB 645 for the following reasons. We believe SB 645 and related substitutes are bad because it allows the governor to usurp local elected government authority and does not consider their views and or actions. Further, it violates the Constitution of Virginia, local charters, and state law. We believe this legislation is too much government overreach and unnecessary. We also believe the Auditor of Public Accounts has the authority to intervene when necessary and appropriate. In 2017, the General Assembly ordered the APA to create a physical monitoring system and process to provide local governments with aid. That process should be studied for effectiveness, opposing passing a new law that would assume local government authorities. We believe this bill undermines the role of local officials and disenfranchises voters.
Sir.
The revised bill also—
Sir, real quick, you're reading the statement that all the committee members have received this statement. There's a 13-point noted opposition And so we have this testimony
Okay.
before
And
the
I'll
committee,
just-
and appreciate if you could sum up, and appreciate you spending time
Sure.
with us this morning.
I
Thank
would
you.
conclude by saying that in conclusion, the City of Hopewell recommendation is that respectfully request that the patrons withdraw this legislation and request a statewide study be conducted before this type of legislation is introduced and passed in the General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? All right, the bill's before the committee. It needs to be
Mr. Chair.
referred to Finance. Senator Aird.
I just have closing comments. And I thank everyone who has come before. I'm going to wrap it up really quickly, but I want to make note to the reference that was made to budget language. Guess what? The budget language that exists there because of when I was in the House and I had a locality going through fiscal distress. So I'm very familiar with it, and I'm glad that we were able to put that there because we had no other mechanism to save a locality that was basically on the brink of bankruptcy. Mr. Chair, what I would say is that language has proven to not go far enough. Right now, we have another locality that thankfully they are getting help, but is also on the brink of bankruptcy. And as a Commonwealth, we have to have tools in place to help our localities. So this reference to usurping and the governor's overreach, the only overreach that remains in this bill is none, but the governor actually having the authority to give a locality money when they are in a state of fiscal distress, that's $750,000 that you see. And so lastly, I will just say, Mr. Chairman, I heard that there was fear and concern about constitutional officers being displaced, and to clarify, the language simply says that when there is this level of crises, that so the Commonwealth can quickly rectify the issue, it temporarily reassigns the duties. And so no, we're not putting constitutional officers out of business. No, the governor is not coming in taking over localities, but yes, this is legislation to allow the Commonwealth to help communities when they are in their absolute worst state.
Thank you. And we do have one online speaker that's been flagged for me. If you can state your name, support or opposition, and turn on your camera, please. 30 seconds.
Thank you. I'm Barb Rudolph, a good government advocate from Petersburg, and I strongly support this bill. I'm just going to make a plea to you all. This is not a partisan issue. It's not what Senator Aird is proposing is long overdue. The tools that are in place are not adequate. I'm a former budget director at Department of Health and VITA in the state. We took APA audits really seriously. When there were material weakness findings in internal controls, those had to be addressed by the agency, and they could not be repeated, or woe unto the agency head.
Thank you, ma'am.
If the APA were checking that in locality audits, Petersburg would be in deep problem. And these are the type of things that are escaping attention without an early warning system. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for joining us this morning. Senator Diggs, you have a question or a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion that we strike lines 143, starting at notwithstanding, through 146, ending at plan, which essentially deals with the constitutional officers.
All right, there's a motion.
Mr. Chair, I do not consider that a friendly amendment.
Okay. Any other motions?
Mr. Chairman, move to report the substitute and re-report to finance. Or re-refer to finance, I'm sorry.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? All right, there's a motion and a second to report and re-refer to finance. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 8, noes 6, 1 abstention.
All right, Senator Boysko. That bill reports and re-refer to finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have SB 409, and after having conversations with some of the stakeholders, have agreed to offer an amendment that I don't believe our clerks have.
All right, you want to read through the amendment?
Certainly. It would say on line 18, after code section 36 through 97, and here is the Here's the amendment. Provided that a stretch code may not limit, prohibit, or have the effect prohibiting or preventing the use of natural gas in buildings covered thereby.
All right.
Second.
Is there a motion on the amendment? This motion is second. All in favor of adopting the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Amendment is properly before us. Any other amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, SB 409 is a bill that would provide localities with the authority to adopt energy efficiency and climate standards in their localities. I've carried similar bills in the past, and builders have the knowledge and the skill to build homes and office buildings that are more energy efficient than what they are required to build in Virginia at this time. In fact, in Maryland, where many builders in my area, Northern Virginia, work in both states, Maryland has stretch codes that they are required to use, so I know that it is possible. As we have seen in recent years, the climate energy emergency that the world is facing is getting worse, and our planet is at more risk than ever. Taking actions now to combat these problems is an important step to prevent future issues and correct those that already exist. There are localities who wish to take action, including my locality in Fairfax County. This is a local option bill that allows other localities to stick with the status quo if they do not wish to adopt these on their own. Passage of SB 409 will benefit all residents of communities who enact stretch code building codes by lowering their utility bills now and throughout the life of the building where they live, work, and shop. Low-income Virginians who pay a disproportionate share of their income on utility costs will benefit the most. Virginia's residents and builders deserve to live in and build energy-efficient spaces to lower energy cost and help with our environment. I have Bob Shippey here for the Sierra Club, and there are other folks here who can answer technical questions. I also have information to share with all of you, and I hope that the bill will be reported.
Thank you, Senator Boysko. Those in opposition to Senate Bill 409, those in opposition to Senate Bill 409, please come forward. State your name and opposition.
Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition?
Not necessarily in opposition. However, in looking at the amendment that came forward today, I understand that that includes natural gas. There was some discussion about adding propane to that as well. And we're concerned with the fact and would oppose if propane is not added. Mike O'Connor with Propane Gas Association.
Thank you. Come on up, state your opposition.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association of Virginia. I think I had a lot more friends before that line amendment. Glad you picked up on that. We are opposed to the bill. In fact, despite some of the comments of the proponents, I think this would probably result in a fairly significant increase on low-income homeowners, renters. We have a statewide building code that's developed over a 2.5-year process. We've got stakeholders from fire, the construction industry, building officials who sit around for 30 to 40 meetings evaluating code proposals in detail. This bill just allows any locality, any local governing body, just on a whim, to adopt anything that exceeds Virginia's building code, the International Energy Conservation Code, or really I think anything adopted or suggested by the DOE. So you've got no predictability for local code officials who right now take a year to digest the new code, implement it and understand it, and then it becomes mandatory. Builders start to incorporate that and update their design plans and submit those to localities for approval. This would really upend the process that Virginia's been nationally recognized for in their code development. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Erin Corman with the Realtors. We associate ourselves with the home builders' comments, and we also oppose the bill.
Mr. Chair, Randy Grumbine representing the factory-built housing industry, and we too oppose the bill. All of our product is made in one location and shipped to sites, and you can imagine the logistical challenge of having a patchwork of different codes all across the Commonwealth, how difficult it would be to provide solutions for each one of those. So I agree with the comments associated with the home builders, and there is a process to vet improvements. We do that every cycle, and some are approved and some are heavily debated and not selected. So I would continue to support that process.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Heidi Cook on behalf of Columbia Gas of Virginia. Not standing in full opposition today. We want to thank the senator for working on language and amendments in the last little bit here, but would still like to reserve the right to take that language back to our legal department just to make sure we've satisfied the concerns that we have. So thank you.
Great. And we have a speaker online as well. So please state your name, turn your camera on, and state your opposition and anything different that's been previously stated.
You may begin.
I'm not sure who you have in mind. My name is William Penniman, and I'm in support of the bill. So,
okay, yeah, proceed.
Fine. Okay. Yeah, I urge you to approve SB 409. I'm a resident of Fairfax County and constituent of Senator Boysko, and I've worked for the last three and a half years on trying to get Virginia's building code up to date. Local governments need stretch code authority to improve the building stock in their jurisdictions. Many states allow stretch codes. Even the International Energy Conservation Code and DOE acknowledge the role of stretch codes and recognize it. Counties and cities have no incentive to overburden businesses to the detriment of residents and the economy, but they need additional building code authority to protect their communities.
Great.
And order to reduce emissions and improve climate readiness. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Those in support of Senate Bill 409 in the room, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Shippey, I volunteer with the Sierra Club. This is an important bill for us. It'll be on our legislative scorecard, and the reason for that is really the two things that this bill does. One, any locality or municipality that has climate goals, carbon reduction goals, you can't really get to those without dealing with the 29% of emissions that come from buildings. So this gives localities another lever to do that. And then to the affordability point, this is actually an affordability bill. So all the studies from the Department of Energy, the federal level, to private labs like Pacific Northwest Labs, et cetera, they all show you put a little bit of money in up front. When you're building a structure that's going to last 50 plus years, you get a lot more benefit over many decades. So it actually helps with the issue that was brought up recently on the utility bills and the like. So I urge you to report the bill. Thanks.
Senator Sturline, you have a question?
Mr. Chairman, speaking very briefly, don't take issue with, I think he and I have different policy views, but I find it problematic when anyone from any organization says this is our scorecard bill. I don't think that's appropriate. Whatever side you're coming from. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sturline. Those also in support, please come forward, state your name.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Elizabeth Parker with Troutman Pepper representing Loudoun County. We support the bill and thank the patron.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Victoria Higgins, Chesapeake Climate Action Network Action Fund. We support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Climate Cabinet Action, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Alana Crennan with Arlington County, we support the bill and thank the patron.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Lillian Anderson with Virginia Conservation Network, and we also support the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Sarah Taylor, City of Alexandria. There are some states where there is a model stretch code included in their building codes. And so, but that is not something that we have available to us here. And so we would appreciate the option to establish our own stretch code in our locality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hackworth, I'm sorry, is in the queue first, then Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And me and Senator Boysko has had several housing conversations, and I think we both are on the same page that we would like to see a more energy efficient, affordable housing. But I would just like to say that I think this is aptly named when it says stretch codes, because being in the housing and construction business, it does stretch budgets, it stretches timelines, and it stretches the ongoing housing crisis that we have. Because I have never seen a stretch code that has not cost more, and it has put a wrinkle into the housing community. I appreciate and I think that there is some of those that we have with the insulation value, some of the energy. I think that is very important. But I think by doing this is just a step too far, and it would further make our housing problem just exaggerated.
Thank you, Senator Hackworth. Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move to report as amended, and I also like to just agree with the comments from Senator Suterline earlier.
There's a motion. There's a motion and a second to report as amended, Senate Bill 409. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 7, no 7, 1 abstention.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That bill fails to report. Senator Bagby, you have Senate Bill 544. You can do this in 3 minutes, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think this is a substitute.
Mr. Chair, move the substitute.
All right. This motion is second. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second to adopt a substitute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Substitute is properly before us. Senator Bagby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The intent of this substitute was simply to address conditional use permits, also known as CUPs, and special use permits, also known as SUPs, in the short-term rental permitting process where it involves the primary residence of the homeowner. This covers situations where the homeowner who simply wants to rent a room in their primary residence, or even the entire house when they might be away on a trip. There's a couple things to point out in this legislation, and that is going forward, no local government can have a short-term rental permitting process requiring a conditional use or special use permit where it involves the homeowner's primary residence. The substitute does not limit the ability for local government to use the CUPs or SUP process for properties whose primary use is short-term, such as vacation homes or investment properties. The substitute also does not limit the ability of a local government to designate areas through the zoning process where STRs cannot operate. And that is the bill, Mr. Chair.
I have those in opposition to Senate Bill 544. Please come up, state your name and opposition. Drawing a crowd here, Senator Bagby.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with VACO. Haven't seen the substitute online because I haven't had a chance to pull it up, but I think I'd seen a substitute earlier from proponents of the bill. VACO's position on this is that we can develop local ordinances now that figure out how short-term rentals fit within our community. There's going to be instances where we need to balance the needs for people that want to use short-term rentals, plus also balance the needs for affordable housing, short-term rentals. So at this time, we are opposed to the bill, but thank you.
Hello, I'm Andrew Cohen of Virginia Beach, still a member of the board of the North Virginia Beach Civic League and co-chair of our Legislative Affairs Committee. We oppose this mandate that exempts local authority to determine where STRs are a compatible use. While this bill only applies to dwellings occupied by their property owner as their primary residence, there's no practical way to know whether a dwelling is legally occupied by the property owner as their primary residence, so there's no way to know whether local zoning or this state law would apply. Further, the Code of Virginia says that a principal residence may not be used for any business purpose for which expenses may be deducted for federal income tax. So by existing state law, a principal residence may not be used as an STR. Again, there's no compelling need for the General Assembly to preempt localities on this. Please do not advance this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kristen Kanaski for Fairfax County, and for the reasons stated, we oppose this bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Brent McKenzie with the City of Virginia Beach. We oppose this legislation. We think these decisions are best made at the local level, and we'd appreciate your help with that. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Ed Reed on behalf of Two Capitals Consulting, on behalf of the City of Hampton, and we also oppose the legislation. Thank you.
Good morning, Michelle Gowdy from the Virginia Municipal League. We also oppose this legislation. Thank you.
Great. Those in opposition online, please make sure your camera's turned on. State your name and organization and your opposition.
Kamika Anderson, you may begin.
Good morning. I'm not opposed to the bill. I am in support. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
All right, please hold that. We'll take support amendment. Those also online in opposition, please raise your hand. Any opposition online?
Adam Sharney.
Thank you, Adam Charney, Mayor of Cape Charles. The town opposes this bill. It serves to undermine local ability to solve local problems. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, those in support of Senate Bill 544, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Jordan representing Airbnb. As Senator Bagby indicated, the bill does not affect the ability of local governments to regulate SUPs. It simply deals with the process by which you do it. There are about 16 localities that use the CUP or SUP process. The bill grandfathers them going forward, and it would apply prospectively, meaning that localities could not employ that process, which we have found to be arbitrary, obtuse at times, and expensive and lengthy, and frankly, quite unfair. As if you've ever dealt with the SUP or CUP process, the Planning Commission and the local governing body have few guardrails on their decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Erin Corman with the Realtors, and we do support this bill.
Great. And those in support online, please raise your hand, turn on your camera.
Kamika Anderson, you may begin. Unmute yourself, please.
I do apologize. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I will be brief. I just want to say that I am in support of the bill as a Airbnb host myself. I do not think that it is going to affect our localities. I do believe that it has helped substantially families in the area. For example, in 2023, 1.4 million families have come to our area in the Hampton Roads area, which I speak of because I host in Norfolk. And at this point in time, we are able to help others, and we are creating a luxe experience by being super hosts, far exceeding the expectations and providing housing. So I do believe for you to oppose this bill is for you not to step into the position of someone who is not able to afford some of our hotels in the area and do not want to experience the lack of the excellent customer service that they receive by some of our super hosts. And that's all I have for you today.
Thank
I hope
you.
that you will consider.
Next speaker.
Margaret Durkin.
We have 20 seconds left. How many speakers are online? Just one more? Okay. So we have 2 speakers left. 20 seconds. Go.
Good morning, Chairman McPike and members of the committee. My name is Margaret Durkin, and I'm Executive Director with TechNet in the Mid-Atlantic. TechNet supports this bill as a way to improve access to housing and innovation. We are against any sort of regulation that stifles innovation, and as previous speakers mentioned, only a few localities allow for this. It's lengthy, bureaucratic, and very costly for people, so we would support the Bagby substitute. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Next speaker.
Alan, you may begin.
Just please state your name and your support.
My name is Alon Sean Combs. I'm a Director of State and Local Public Policy for Chamber of Progress, which is a tech trade coalition. We're in support of this bill because we feel it would help eliminate barriers for the average person trying to host. We'd like to note that 69% of Virginia short-term rental hosts have said that they would use the extra income to cover costs of living.
Great.
And we're in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The bill is before us. Is there a motion on the bill? Move to report the substitute. There's a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 544. Clerk, open the roll.
We can do it based on like where someone's.
All right, that bill reports.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
All right, Senator Durant, you have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move to make a motion to reconsider.
Senate Bill 409.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Second. There's a motion and a second to reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 409 failed to report. Please open the roll. It's a motion to reconsider. This is a motion to reconsider. This is a motion to reconsider.
Ayes 15, noes 0.
All right. Senate Bill 409 is back before the committee. Is there a motion on Senate Bill 409?
Move to report as amended.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All right, there's a motion and a second to report as amended, Senate Bill 409. Clerk, open the roll. Sorry, hold on, strike the roll.
No, Mr. Chair, I just
Senator
wanna go
Williams-Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go on the record and say that the reconsideration of my particular vote is for the patron, and it has absolutely nothing to do with this scorecard comment, which I found very offensive.
Thank you. I think that is shared by many members of the committee.
Thank you.
Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 7, noes 8.
All right, that bill fails report. Thank you. All right, we'll have two bills to still consider. We do not have time. We've got to get to the floor. And so we will schedule some time to deal with Van Valkenburg's and my bill. The committee will rise.